Raw review, pop or drop. I'm Will, that's Brandon, we're the Cousins of Destruction. Let's cheers, let's talk about this Raw. Wow.
Yeah, that's a word to sum it up.
Wow. The WWE has been on a bit of a heater lately. Good stuff. Kind of ever since Rumble, whenever kind of The Rock came back and all that, it's been really good stuff. And even through WrestleMania, even through Backlash, even up till King of the Ring, and some would say King and Queen of the Ring. Tonight's episode of Raw felt like the first miss.
Yeah. First miss in quite some time.
Yeah.
And I know, as we talked a little bit off screen, the Raw after the typical Saudi shows are a little bit of a struggle.
Yep.
And you could tell they didn't have a whole bunch of people backstage. That's probably why we saw a lot of the same repetitiveness, but just didn't seem like they had a real clear plan start to finish.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. The show starts and Ludwig Kaiser is standing in the middle of the ring, and he is here to introduce our new King of the Ring, Gunther. Gunther comes out, and this segment was something. It really was. So basically, Gunther came out. He said that he has finally brought prestige back to the King of the Ring, and he looks at the World Heavyweight Championship in front of him and says there is no prestige there, and he's looking forward to bringing prestige to that belt, which then Damian Priest, champion, hey, you say I'm not prestigious, so I'm coming out to the ring. And Damian basically comes out and says, you didn't even really beat Randy Orton. They were kind of playing with the whole botch finished. They were like, honestly, Randy should have been champ, so you don't really mean anything anyways. And then Drew comes out. Drew McIntyre then comes out, and he briefly shrugs off the CM Punk chants. He says, whatever. I didn't even know what he said, but CM Punk's a loser, whatever.
Something about Punk has to thank me or else he'd be kicked out. Basically
something weird like that. Anyway, what was weird about this was when Drew came to the ring, Gunther just decided to leave with no word. He just left. He was done. That was it. He didn't want to be there anymore. It was like right in the middle of their conversation, and he was like, "Oh, Drew's here, so I'm good."
Yeah.
I
guess focus on the title match coming up, so I'll just leave, I guess.
Yeah. Drew then says that basically Judgment Day has not been the same and has been going downhill ever since Rhea Ripley's injury. He would then go on to talk about his previous year's match at Clash of the Castle and how that crowd was so behind him and how it made Roman Reigns even a little bit scared. So basically, Drew is saying, I got major home field advantage. You should be worried. Damian basically then said, well, you think I'm worried about getting booed? I've been booed forever. I'll try to get under your skin. I mentioned your wife, and he got a little bit under his skin. And then Braun Strowman comes out. Yep, you're following me here. This is not you didn't skip ahead.
This is about 20 minutes into the show.
He comes out literally in the middle. They didn't leave on any note here. He interrupted their conversation. And Braun Strowman comes out, and he's big boy, and now Drew is leaving the ring. And commentaries like, oh, well, Braun Strowman's out here because he has a match against JD McDonough.
Yep.
And if that
we went to commercial.
If that sounded anticlimactic, it's because it was. I like Damian, I like Drew, I like Gunther, and somehow I'm giving this a drop. It was unorganized. Nothing was really accomplished here. It was just a hodgepodge of nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give it a drop as well.
Yeah.
It went on too long, in my opinion. Like you said, there's too many moving parts involved in it. I liked Damian's mic work tonight. It was nice to see him kind of get that babyface reaction that they're kind of somewhat playing towards, but we'll get into it later. It's weird because they're somewhat playing into it, but then later on he gets booed, but then he also gets cheered. Yeah. So I think the crowd's a little bit unsure of where to cheer, whether or not to cheer or boo Damian.
Yeah.
And Damian on the mic, you can tell his confidence is there. So I think when he comes out by himself, it's very like, okay, cool, good guy. Like, I like this Damian. Then when he gets paired in with the Judgment Day, it's kind of like, oh, these are supposed to be bad guys. Let's boo these guys.
Yeah, it's a good point that you said that. I didn't really think about that until you just said it. But yeah, the personalities of Damian are much different depending who's he on screen with, who he is on screen with, and you're right, it does show.
Yeah, which I guess maybe is, I don't know if that's intentional or not, but I mean, his NXT days, he had like that Jekyll Hyde type thing. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know, but I like Damian for sure. That was kind of the takeaway from this segment. But yeah, just a weird opening to Raw. And like we said, it was about 30 minutes in at this point.
Yeah. Anyway, back from commercial break, Braun Strowman takes on JD McDonough, and this went about, actually, it went about a little bit differently than we thought. We watched it together, and we thought squash match, and it started out squash match. Yeah. Braun was, JD was bumping for Braun, doing the work. Braun looks strong as all hell, right? But then he goes for a corner spear, which always means they're going to move, and he spears the ring post, falls out of the ring, hurts his leg when he does it. He starts selling a leg injury the rest of the night. This ends up in JD actually getting a bunch of offense off. And then eventually you have Carlito come out, more Judgment Day to try to help JD. It ends up backfiring. Braun Strowman gets a power slam on JD. 1, 2, 3. He wins. Attacks happen after the match. Ends up in JD McDonough running backstage, and the through line throughout the night was Braun chasing him. I'm going to go ahead and give this an up. And it's a very, very soft up. And the reason being, it was a nothing burger. I'm not sitting here saying that it did anything for any story, but Braun Strowman's back. He looks good. He looks strong. I'm just happy to see him back.
I guess for that reason, I'm going to go to the opposite.
Yep.
I'm giving it a drop.
Yep.
Braun,
totally understandable.
Braun looks strong, yes. To me, it's just another, hey, it's Braun Strowman. He's real big. Look what he can do to smaller people. JD looked good bumping throughout the match. I also just don't really, I guess, think that they were really trying to push too much, because I guess throughout this whole thing, it's like you take Braun, who doesn't really have a character, doesn't really have a storyline right now. You take the least important Judgment Day member, and you're like, hey, let's hope this works. Yeah. Like, maybe if it was Finn, maybe I feel like I would care a little bit more.
Yeah.
But just with it being Braun and JD, I can't find myself buying into that dynamic.
I completely understand what you're saying. I just think when it comes to Finn, WWE's trying to hold on to any bit left that the fans have of taking Finn seriously, and just having him go out there and Braun throwing him around that would be the end of his strength as a character. It would be done. Yeah. Like, he would just be the guy who loses.
Yeah, and I get they're saving it for Priest. Yeah. Like, I completely understand that, and that makes sense. I'm not really bashing on that part of it. I guess it's more so just like they've done nothing to build up like the JD character.
Oh, I agree.
And so it's like, why should I care?
Again, I'm not saying this was good by any means in terms of story. I'm just saying, you know what? It was nothing. Braun looked great. Braun's back. Fun. We move on. Liv had a small interview in the back with Kathy Kelly. They alluded to her win at Queen of the Ring. She's now the World Heavyweight Champion, but she did say, I don't know why Dom did what he did at Queen of the Ring, King of the Ring, but I'm looking forward to taking on Becky again tonight in a steel cage match to prove I'm better than him one-on-one. We won't pop or drop that, but that's just something that happened.
And right at that point when she says, yeah, never really beat Becky by myself, and Dom really made sure that didn't happen. You knew right then and there, as we'll get to later. Dom was going to get in
shenanigans.
Somehow.
Anyway, we then had a Braun Breaker video package, but then immediately found out that Braun has been suspended tonight. Aw. We then cut to Ricochet, who is getting cleared for the night because Braun destroyed his ribs last week. Ilya Dragunov comes out and says, thank you kind of for saving me against Braun. We had a great King of the Ring round 1 match a while back. If you need anything from me, maybe down the line we can fight each other again. Ricochet goes, how about tonight? Adam Pearce is just so happened to stand right there. He goes, you know what? You both won it. Let's go ahead and do it. That leads us to a Ricochet versus Ilya Dragunov match, which slapped.
Yep.
Slapped, as you would think.
Yep.
A lot of high-flying maneuvers from both of them. Ilya was giving him suplexes after suplexes. Ricochet was looking great. Even though he was selling the rib injury, Ilya was doing the smart thing, targeting the ribs the entire match. I have one of the biggest spots was Ricochet reversed one of Ilya's H-bombs with a super kick, and then he went right in from the super kick into a Ricochet recoil. 1, 2, oh, that was cool. We thought that was going to be the end of the match. Yeah. Anyway, big builds come in. Ricochet's actually about to go up, he got a big move off. Yeah, he got he did a shooting star press. Mm-hmm. He landed the shooting star press. Yeah. Big comeback from Ricochet happening. He gets up, Braun Breaker out of nowhere spears the ever-living shit out of that man. Ricochet wins by disqualification, but Braun Breaker then spears Ilya Dragunov. Security from the back, Adam Pearce, everybody pissed off. Braun Breaker cannot be contained. I'm going to go ahead and give this a pop just overall because I love the match. I don't care who gets a winner. If we get a winner there, as you alluded to when we were watching, they're probably going to run it back a third time anyway, whether we got a clean winner or not. And Braun getting involved in this is awesome. So, pop.
Yeah, I think this is, at least for me, probably the strongest part of the night for me. It was nice to see, like you said, another great match. I mean, you could put those two in the ring any day and I'll watch it. And that says a lot because Ricochet I've never really truly been a fan of.
Right.
So I think he's come a long way, and Dragunov is just something special, I think, as well. And then you've got the whole Braun Breaker situation. I mean, they're booking him to just destroy people, and that's just what he does when you look at the guy. I mean, he's just so menacing, and to have him kind of have that dynamic with Pierce has been really interesting. I don't know if maybe that's
we thought he was going to spear Pierce.
Yeah, and maybe that's eventually what happens.
Braun was looking at him in the ring, and we were both like, "He going to spear Pierce here?"
Yeah, so
which would be electric if he eventually does. So
yeah, and so him coming back, quote unquote, from suspension next week, I guess we'll see what happens.
Pop.
Yeah, you got to pop that.
Nice. I just want to allude to the Awesome Truth segment very quick. They're running a Memorial Day ice cream stand, of course, as they do, and. The Miz said, or R-Truth handed him vanilla ice cream, and he said, "Oh, I'm vanilla. Does that make you?" And R-Truth said, "Strawberry." Of course.
Yes.
Funny joke. Move on.
Yes. Anything with Awesome Truth in it is top notch.
Yes, I agree. There was a very quick Karrion Kross came and started talking to Xavier Woods. I'm not going to talk about that very much right now. Eventually that becomes a thing, but it sounds like Karrion Kross is wanting Xavier Woods to join Final Testament.
Yeah, and next week they have a match, New Day.
Yeah. So next week that storyline might actually kick off. We then got a very short match with Final Testament, aka Authors of Pain, representing the Final Testament versus the Creed brothers, Julius and Brutus, who we are just really wanting to team with Gable. But anyway, this match was what it was. AOP looked strong. They were beating the hell out of Brutus until eventually Brutus got a hot tag into Julius, who is definitely the more talented of the Creed guys. They gave Julius a nice little 60 seconds of spots and heat. And then on the outside of the ring, Final Testament got involved in shenanigans on the outside involving Scarlett Bordeaux and Ivy Nile. And that distracted the Creed brothers. AOP they call their finisher the What a Rush. Yeah,
named by Paul Ellering, who is obviously the Road Warriors manager at one point.
AOP wins. I'm going to drop this. I think, I mean, sorry to step on you, but just to finish the match off, I'm going to go ahead and drop this because I think the Creed brothers are great. And I think bearing just the people don't forget these little losses like this as much as WWE thinks that people do. Especially when we have as much social media now and the rumors about the Creed brothers have been happening for months. So now we do have our eyes a little bit more on these guys when they walk out. That's not the WWE's fault, I guess, but rumors happen for a reason. We all have our eyes on these guys now. And when you come out and you just give them a 5-minute nothingness that ends in a loss to people that nobody really cares about right now, that's a drop.
Yeah, and they had that little backstage segment with Gable. Yeah. What was that, last week?
Yeah, where they just alluded to it.
Yeah, where they kind of alluded to it a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and drop this as well. I understand what you're saying. I get maybe they're trying to break them down so Gable can come and save them or turn to them for help. Or
that's a good point.
I get that part of it, but I feel like they could have almost put any other tag team.
When you want them to, because the whole point of Gable turning right now is that he thinks that the Alpha Academy is a bunch of losers. So if you get to create a couple wins, then you can go, those guys are winners. I want to be, you guys should be the Alpha Academy. That would make more sense to me as a viewer.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I just feel like they could have put any other tag team to take the loss.
Yeah,
against AOP if you want to build AOP up with the Final Testament. The What a Rush, I get Ellering, Road Warriors, legendary Hall of Fame guy. It just doesn't make any sense because it's like, well, they have nothing to do with the Road Warriors.
I agree.
So I'm like, can we name something, I don't know, maybe a little bit more specific to these guys? AOP, Final Testament, I'm kind of I'll wait and see what happens, but I'm already kind of out on that. There's no reason for me to kind of really.
And this isn't new. The Final Testament's been around.
Yeah,
right.
Each
They've
of them,
been here.
AOP and Cross have both been there.
Yeah, I mean,
they've kind of all failed, and they kind of just threw them together. But
so
not really looking too good. Yeah,
drop from you as well. Anyway, Rey Mysterio cut a promo on Carlito, which was actually kind of a fiery promo. He basically said, "We welcomed you to the LWO with open arms, and now you betrayed us, and now you're trying to join the group that won't even open their arms to you. Yes. So you're gonna learn that I'm gonna whoop your ass, basically." But that led right into a Sheamus promo. Yep, that was Raw tonight. Sheamus came out to the ring, and he was already out of breath, and he acknowledged the fact that he was out of breath, which was kind of funny. I love Sheamus, nothing against Sheamus here. But he, obviously, Ludwig Kaiser's been calling him out for weeks, and he then came out tonight and said, I've been hearing your words, big fella, let's fight. Ludwig Kaiser comes out, or doesn't come out, but he's on the big screen talking his shit. And Sheamus basically goes, "You know what? You're here. I'm just going to come fight you," which is the best logic ever. Yeah. And he gets out of the ring and he goes and he finds Ludwig Kaiser, and they end up getting in a fight in the back, throwing each other around in the back. You could it wasn't our normal backstage segment. It was like between the backstage and Gorilla, where you could see the crowd too. It was very real, kind of. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it spilled out onto the stage. Security broke them both up. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a pop. It's nice to see Sheamus back. These are two guys that could definitely both utilize this feud for good stuff.
Yeah, I'll give it a pop as well. I know next week on Raw they're having a match. I assume that's not gonna end it. I assume they're gonna keep going somehow, some way. But you can sign me up for it. It's interesting to see Ludwig kind of be the better of the two on the mic. Yeah, Sheamus has never really been great on the mic, but to see Ludwig kind of have his own time to shine and show what he can do on the mic has been really nice. Been kind of impressed with that. We'll see what happens with the match. I'm not too familiar with his in-ring. Like, I've seen some of it, but like single stuff, I don't really know. Yeah. But Sheamus is always good in the ring, so.
Oh, I think the match will slap. I think it'd be great. Yeah. I mean, banger after banger for Sheamus. His track record shows. So
so give that a pop as well.
Yeah. We then got the weekly backstage segment of Becky Lynch hyping up her last kicker, Lyra Valkyria. Lyra Valkyria taped up on the ribs, selling that phenomenal finish that from Nia the Annihilator in their Queen of the Ring final match. So I like that kind of stuff. It only happened 2 days ago, so of course she'd still be sore. But Becky, just to preface, this episode of Raw was the last scheduled event for Becky Lynch on her current contract. Mm-hmm. So that was something to watch all night as to whether or not they're going to give her the belt. But that, I have to preface with saying that because the comment that she told Lyra was, "You live and learn till it's time to walk away." That's what she told Lyra Valkyria. And she got up and left. And now we're here for a Lyra Valkyria versus Kairi Sane match. Kairi Sane comes out with Dakota Kai. It looks like she's just going through all of Damage Control, as we said. Kairi Sane dominated literally 95% of this match. Yeah. I mean, just going after the ribs. Yeah. It ends up she even did this where she had Lyra Valkyria's knees on the second turnbuckle, and she did a stomp right to her ribs. But it ended in Lyra Valkyria reversed the insane elbow. She put her feet up on the insane elbow, which is always nice. She nailed it, and Kairi Sane landed on her feet, and then Lyra then rolled her up. 1, 2, 3, just escapes with the win. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a drop. Lyra Valkyria has been putting on banger after banger, all props. This felt just like forced Lyra Valkyria action. Wasn't here for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a pop just because they gave Valkyria the win, obviously, and they're just continuing to kind of build her. Yeah, it wasn't the strongest showing by any means, but it was a showing with somebody that you had there, I assume, backstage that, hey, she can go. The fans like her. Let's make sure we give her a win. As you'll probably note here in a second, EO backstage as well after the
just
match.
Go for it.
Yeah, just kind of flipping out and breaking everything in the room. When
there's a backstage segment, where EO, Dakota Kai, and Kairi Sane walk back in after their match, and EO doesn't say a word. She just starts breaking everything. So.
Yeah, so I assume that's kind of imploding damage control
Yep.
as well. So I guess that's maybe why I also kind of give it a pop.
We're losing all of our factions.
Yeah, which is interesting because just a few weeks ago I was going to say, hey, are there too many factions in wrestling? And now we're just losing all of them.
Yeah, this is the end of the faction era, it looks like. I mean, obviously we're going to keep some, but I mean, Bloodline is looking completely different. So I guess that one's not dead, but Alpha Academy's ending, Damage Control is ending, Judgment Day's imploding. Fun stuff to come, I guess.
Yeah, but at least we have Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler.
Sonya Deville.
Yes.
Man, powerhouses. Okay, we move on. There was a small Judgment Day backstage segment where Damian said that Carlito is still not a part of Judgment Day, and Dom shows back up, and Damian goes, "Dude, what the hell were you doing in Saudi? Why did you do that? You know, you screwed this up. Did you talk to Rhea?" And he goes, "Yes, I spoke to Mommy, and I told her I'm gonna make it all right tonight in the championship match." Is what it is. We would then move on to Rey Mysterio versus Carlito, which they said was the first time they fought in 20 years.
I'd have to fact check that.
We're old.
I feel like that's false.
Yeah, but even if it's false, it's probably like 17.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I don't think it's 20. It might be 18 or 19. I don't think it's 20, though.
They walked out, and it was like me and Brandon were sitting there like, we're watching SmackDown in 2007 right now. Like, what like, this is crazy. Not to complain about it, really. I mean, I was fine with it when I saw the card, especially for how the night had been going so far. Anyway, Rey was there to bump for Carlito. Carlito was really stiff working throughout this match, dominated the beginning. The first 5 minutes, it looked rough. We came back from commercial break, and they had really sped things up, though. Rey was taking good bumps, as obviously what I just said. Judgment Day eventually comes out to help Carlito. Balor did. Rey Mysterio would get out of the ring and just hit Finn Balor once. Would go into the ring, proceed to 619 Carlito, and 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to drop this because Judgment Day needs to have some sort of significance in terms of being a powerhouse at all in the WWE, and all they do is lose at this point. There is Damian, and the rest of them lose. And I get that that's part of Damian just going away from the story, or going away from Judgment Day. I completely understand that's part of that story, but man, they just look flat out weak at this point.
Yeah, I know I'm going to, I guess, talk out of both sides of my mouth, because just a minute ago I was talking about how, I like the Damage Control Valkyrie. I'll give that an up or a pop because of the backstage, after the match stuff. That was the only good part about this match. I'm giving the match definitely a drop with Mysterio and Carlito. Nothing against either one of those guys. It's just, for me, I don't buy into them right now. It's just it's just kind of filler stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess because they're not really younger talent like Valkyrie is. So I guess that's probably why I drop it. It was a match. I mean, It was a standard, almost like a house show type match. But to see Priest kind of after take control and show his dominance.
Yeah, so that did happen post-match, which I'm not going to pop or drop this, but I am going to say that I really, really like it. I just don't think it was a significant amount of time on the show to pop or drop. But Damian came out and basically made all things right. Took out Rey, took out all the LWO, and looked over to the Judgment Day like, come on, guys.
Yep.
Which, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Give me more of that from Damian. Make him a dominant champion in every single way.
Yeah.
And he's really separating himself from them in that pathway.
Yeah, that was good. It was just, like you said, it was maybe a minute, and the whole...
Yeah, it was like 60 seconds.
The whole Mysterio, Carlito, the promos before the Carlito talking to Judgment Day, the match, it all ended up being about 30 minutes.
I can't pop that entire portion because of the last 60 seconds of it.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So we would then move on to Chad Gable in the Alpha Academy, where he looks at, the first thing he does is look at Maxine and go, no, there's Goldilocks and her 3 brain cells. Mean to Maxine. How dare he? Anyway, Chad calls out Otis. He says, you screwed me at King of the Ring. I'd be Intercontinental Champion right now if it weren't for you. And because of that, I want you to go up against Bronson Reed tonight. And you and I immediately looked at each other and went, big meaty man.
Yeah, big meaty man slapping meat, And that led can't go wrong, correct?
Can't go too wrong. Bronson Reed versus Otis happened with Gable, obviously. Gable was the only one that came out. He thought Tozawa and Maxine should sit this one out because they are failures. This was big meaty men slapping big meat, man. Bronson Reed was hot early. but then Otis got hot, and it was literally just them running at each other and just smacking the shit out of each other and throwing each other around, literally bouncing off each other in the ring. That sounds unprofessional to say. That's what it was. But then Otis started getting hot, and his hips started talking to him. His hips started talking to him.
Sign me up for that.
And the Alpha Academy shirt came off, and he was ready to dance. Almost off.
And then Gable said no.
And Gable kept saying, "No, you are not going to dance."
And then he did it. Then all the way off at that point.
Yeah. Then he took it all off.
Yeah.
And his hips started to not lie once again. And then Gable once again screamed at him no, which obviously they were taking a lot of time talking about their dancing. So Bronson Reed said, "You know what? I'm going to hit this guy and end this match." And that's exactly what he does. He hit the tsunami on him. Bronson Reed gets the win. 1, 2, 3. Didn't stick around. Bronson Reed left. He's done his part in the story.
Business,
And Gable was furious as always. And we're putting all this in one together because it was just something. He gets up. He calls an impromptu Alpha Academy meeting. He says, "Maxine Tozawa, get out here." And they come all the way down to the ring after the commercial break. And they're all standing there. Gable goes, "You know what, Otis? You and this damn dancing. I'm going to show you discipline. This is what you need. You need discipline." And I'm sitting there in Brandon, and I look at Brandon, and I go, "Is he going to spank him?" And this man starts to take his belt off. He starts to take his belt off, and he says, "Otis, grab the ropes." Not lying. These are words out of his mouth. He said, "I've given you another chance, and you blew it. So grab the ropes. I'm going to teach you some discipline." And he goes to wind this belt up to spank Otis with it, or whip him, or I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I assume so, yeah.
But Otis, or Maxine, fortunately, stops the whipping.
Yeah.
He's coming up to whip, and Maxine stops it. He screams to Maxine, sends her to the back. Mm-hmm. He goes to whip him again, and that's Becky Lynch. Every time I do it.
You're never going to get it right.
I can't do it. Sami Zayn comes out. And to be fair, this was the only time the entire night the crowd yelled, "He's hot." Yeah. But he comes in to stop the whipping. Basically, it turns into Sami Zayn saying, "Otis, why are you dealing with all this shit? Listen to the crowd. You don't need this guy." Gable would then say, "Stop talking to my guy like this." And he ended up beating up Sammy. And the entire time was the crowd and us at home were going, "Is Otis going to stop him?" And no. Otis did not stop him tonight. I'm going to give this whole segment, I got to give it a pop. It was so stupid, from the match to the almost spanking / whipping. But it was so much more fun than the rest of the night. So, thank you for making me laugh for this 20 minutes type deal.
You're going with a pop.
Yeah, I'm popping it.
Okay. I'm dropping this.
Oh.
We talked about it when Bronson Reed came out. We said Bronson Reed is just another person in somebody's storyline. Once again, that is what it is. That's another topic, another time.
Yeah.
The match itself, excuse me, was interesting. I guess it was a match. All the stuff afterwards. I get Gable is supposed to make us uncomfortable and kind of like, "Oh no, what's going to happen? Oh, he's really might do this." And I found myself kind of being a little bit uncomfortable for a second. I was like, "Oh, he's going to take his belt off and beat this grown man."
Damn right he was.
I was
disciplined.
Very just like,
grab that rope, Otis.
I just was like, "Oh, okay, this is happening." The Sami Zayn save come out is what it is. We kind of knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you had mentioned, with the title not really being around Gable, kind of losing interest.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree with this. Gable heel turn has now taken a weird turn without the belt, because which are we supposed to care about more? Gable's pursuit of the title, or Otis's, will he, won't he? And so you get caught up in a story that's so intertwined with multiple stories that you don't know which path to follow when you're watching it. And it almost feels like they don't know which path to push when it's on screen. It's like tonight was 100% about Otis, but also Chad held up the Intercontinental title. So it's like, does he have a title match? What are we doing this again? Is Bronson Reed still involved in the Intercontinental title? What?
Yeah. And I guess you could say, oh, maybe that's why I will watch it, because I don't know what's going to happen. I think as you're sitting there talking about it, and you said so many stories intertwined into one.
Yeah.
It's a separate side, kind of long straw I'm grasping at here. So stay with me for a second. I think maybe the Bloodline storyline was so intertwined with Sammy and Cody and Kevin and Roman and the Uso. Like, you had so many different parts.
Yeah.
And that worked so well.
Yeah.
That I think maybe WWE is like biting off more than they can chew. They're saying, hey, we've done it once before.
We do that all the time now.
Yeah, we can intertwine so many things at one point, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. I kind of get what you're saying. Anyway, big meaty man in Otis. Pop from me. We then moved on.
First time I've ever dropped that in my life.
We then moved on to the much anticipated main event, the Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan for the women's championship in a steel cage. And I looked at Brandon before this and I went, wait, so Dom already said he's going to take care of this for mommy. Braun is still running around the arena looking for JD McDonough. This match is going to end in some bullshit. And he looked at me and he was like, oh shit, you're right.
Yes.
So we started the match. We started the match during a commercial. That's for one thing. WWE's production lately has been phenomenal, but I did have to complain about that. It was very weird. We went from the intros to a commercial to coming back, and they were in the middle of their match. And I'm like, what? But Liv was hot early. She had full control. One thing that we were doing, Liv and Becky were trying to utilize the cage a lot. They were slamming each other's faces into the cage at all points. A lot of try to climb to the top thing. I always think that the steel cage is useless now. The fact that you can just pin, submit, or go out the door, but that's neither here nor there. So I like when they climb. Is what I'm trying to say. There's a cool disarmor that was reversed. So she had her in the disarmor, and Liv kind of utilized momentum and like bucked her into the steel cage where her face hit. That was cool. They fought on top of the cage where everybody was like, ooh, who's going to fall? That ended in like a power bomb. Good stuff. But the music hit and Dom Mysterio came out. And we were like, oh boy, here it comes. Dom comes out in his sling still, his arms hurt, opens the door for Becky. This is after the power bomb. So they went from the top of the cage. Both ended up climbing back down to the ring. Liv powerbombs Becky off the turnbuckle. They're both down. So Dom comes out, opens the door. And then JD McDonough and Finn Balor run out.
Right.
And they're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Which I didn't really understand because I thought we were all under the impression that Rhea wanted Liv to not have the belt. So I figured like all Judgment Day would be happy about it. So I even asked you in real time. I was like, what are they mad about? They're mad about something. I don't know if they're just mad about Dom getting involved, period. I'm not 100% sure. But JD McDonough's out there, which means Braun Strowman now knows where JD McDonough is. Bro, here he comes. He's still limping, selling his leg injury, waddling. And he ends up chasing. They go left around the cage, and they're running. And he come around, and Braun's head full of steam, and he gets to see a body, and the closest body to him is Dom Mysterio. So he shoulder taps Dom into the door as Becky's climbing out. Door slams on the back of Becky's noggin. She falls back. Door hits her head, bounces wide open again. Dom's now down. Becky's now down. Liv climbs out of the cage. Liv remains champion. This was a drop. Man, oh man. This is the least interesting way for the Liv-Becky rivalry for whatever it was to come to an end. I don't know what Judgment Day looks like. A bunch of Looney Tunes characters right now. Literally, they look like Looney Tunes characters right now. When Damien's not on screen, the Judgment Day is a bunch of Looney Tunes characters. Thank God the show ended after that, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and drop this as well. Liv keeps the belt, so I guess that's cool.
Yeah.
You're saying that that's the way to end the rivalry. I don't know if it ends.
Well, I mean, she hasn't signed a contract.
I get that, but maybe she could work. You know how they work handshake deals,
I know.
But you get Liv to keep the belt. Like you said, it's just so chaotic. And for me, like I get you want to drive the storylines home and you want to keep kind of going on the storylines. But for a show that had been hitting so well in terms of the actual wrestling side of things for a really
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
Like, the actual wrestling had been really good for Raw. This one was the first time that the emphasis, to me at least, wasn't on the wrestling. It was more on like the random filler storyline stuff.
Yeah, and it didn't hit.
This is one of the matches, or one of the nights, I should say, that really felt like a Vince produced Raw.
It did. It felt weird. It felt weird like that. It did.
It just where it's just a bunch of chaotic
And
stuff, and you're like, I don't really
and
understand.
I think your
this.
point earlier is right. I think the Saudi shows always mess up how the Raw ends up going. But I'm more so. We said it on our big pod, which came out today, that reviewed King of the Ring, on how they kind of randomly shoot in the Dom part into the Becky Liv storyline on the pre-show of King and Queen of the Ring. And I went, that was interesting for me at that moment, because now I didn't know what happened with the title. But now it just feels like it's the center of the rivalry for Liv and Becky. Yeah. And now it's literally caused the result of both the championship matches. Something that was shoo-inned to the pre-show mere hours before the big first fight. Yeah. Which, not to mention, happened 2 days ago. Yeah. This isn't a month later. Yeah. So I just felt like it's completely out of place. Judgment Day looks stupid. And just not the way for this to go down. But as you said, Liv's champ. So
yeah, again, I think it's WWE intertwining too many things, because it's pretty evident, at least with like the Otis, Gable, Sammy title. It's pretty much like a Dom, Rhea, Becky, Liv title. So it's kind of the same.
Not
thing.
Much one-on-one.
No, it's kind of the same thing. Which I get, you can intertwine some things, but there's too much going on for me, at least right now.
Now, don't get me wrong. Hope Damian and Judgment Day figure this out, because Damian's great. Finn Balor can be great. Those guys, Dom can be great. Liv's obviously great. So this is the first step. Just thought it was a misstep. Anyway, that is our Raw pop or drop for the night. For the first time in our 1 month of Cousins of Destruction programming, I think this one's a drop. So
I don't think it's really close.
I don't think it was close either. I mean, I wrote it down. I could count them, but anyway, drop for this episode, but Raw's been good lately, so we're keeping our head high. Follow us on all socials at COD WrestlePod, COD WrestlePod on all socials. Listen to us wherever you get your podcasts every Monday, every Tuesday, every Saturday, and one throughout the week. I'm Will. That's Brandon. We're the Cousins Instructions. We'll see you next time.